Konnichiwa, minasan. Look what I have. Time to do my workout. Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Bridget here. Today's video is brought to you by books. Doing a book haul for y'all. Promised you I would. Last video was my manga book haul. Today is going to be all of the novels that I've received in March. I might show all of them, I might not. It really depends on how quickly I can go through each of these because there's actually 24 of them, so I might be splitting this up into another part, or I might just wait and show you guys the rest of the haul in the next month, because April I'm gonna try and do not really a banning of books, but just a pause on buying books in April because I've spent way too much money while I was on vacation this past couple weeks ago. Enough of my ranting, let's move forward with the books. The first book I have to show you here is The Warded Man by Peter V. Brett. It's the first book in an adult fantasy. All I know about this book is that it is about a world full of these demons called Corlings. They have supernatural powers. It kind of reminded me of Shingeki no Kyojin in the synopsis, in where that it just says that these Corlings have, with their magical powers, kind of forced humanity to live behind these wards of magical shields, I guess you could say. And it's about 3 young warriors that have survived a Corling attack and have decided to venture outside of these magical wards to go fight them. Does that not sound very much familiar like Shingeki no Kyojin? That's why I want to check out this book and see if it's just my mind making the correlation to the synopsis or if it's anything like that. We'll see. If you've read this and have read Shingeki no Kyojin or Attack on Titan, please let me know if I'm the only one who thinks of this book. But yes, so we have this one. Next up we have Inda by Sherwood Smith. This is the first book in a trilogy. All I know is that it is fantasy and that's it. I really don't know too much about this trilogy, and I read the back of the book and I'm still confused as to what it's about. All I know is it's fantasy set in a kingdom where it's about the second son of the king and some stuff happens in war and the usual, you know. Next book I have is a fairly new release, and that is The Thorn of Denton Hill by Marshall Ryan Maresca. I like stories that take place about magic schools. A man named Veranex, who by day is a student of magic and by night is kind of like a crime crusader. He goes and he spoils drug raids and illegal happenings with mobs and stuff like that. He ends up getting in the way of a trade of a magical item between this very notorious man and steals the magical item and ends up using its powers to then fight the guy later. And that's all I know, so I don't know too much, but I thought it sounded cool to mix kind of crime fighter meets magical student, so I thought it sounded really interesting, so I had to check it out for myself. I also bought a graphic novel this month, and that one is Black Science Volume 1, How to Fall Forever by Rick Remender, Matteo Scalera, and Dean White. What I've gathered from the synopsis of this is that it is about a man named Grant who is the head scientist of a league of scientists who finally deciphers the code for black science and has basically opened up barriers to new dimensions and new worlds, only to kind of tumble through these dimensions and get lost, and that's all I really know about it. Sounds really cool, and I've been getting more into graphic novels lately, and this just seems really interesting, and the artwork's really good as well, so anything done by Image I usually try out at least once. So my book club finally finished the Seven Realms series, and we had been discussing what we were going to read next, and we thought it was going to be this particular series, and it ended up not being, but having thought that we were going to read it, I went ahead and purchased all of the books. Well, all but the first one, because I had already owned the first book. I have owned this book for a very long time, ever since it came out. With that being said, the 2 books that I went ahead and got recently were book 2 and book 3 in the series, which is Curtsies and Conspiracies and Waistcoats and Weaponry. I really love all of the covers to these. They're really gorgeous. Not to mention my wedding colors are purple, teal, and coral, so Anyways, we ended up not reading that, but I went ahead and purchased them anyways. I know it is about a girl that goes to like an etiquette school, but it's not your typical etiquette school. They also teach you to be assassins at the same time, so you learn politeness and weaponry at the same exact time. Another thing I want to show is that I purchased Gail Carriger's Soulless a very long time ago, back when I read the manga adaptation of this and did kind of like a comparison between the two. This is her adult fantasy series, wherein that other one is her YA fantasy series. Recently heard that if you don't read this series first, that it could give away some spoilers for that series, so if you haven't heard, like me, read this series first before you read that one. I bring this up because I didn't like that I had the mass paperback version of this. When it comes to certain fantasies, I really don't care if they're mass paperback or not, but apparently it's getting really hard to find this series in the mass paperback. Isn't that weird? That's so weird. Because recently they released them in full paperback. I don't even know what to call it. Regular paperback. So I went ahead and repurchased it, needless to say. So I got the larger version. So I'm gonna have to find somebody to give this to. Anyways, so we have this. This is her steampunk fantasy adventure. It's got all kinds of creatures in it. This is about a woman named Alexia Terabati who is in her early 30s and still single in this Victorian age steampunk era, so she's considered sort of a spinster. She is also known as what's called a soulless, which when she touches you, it negates any special or supernatural powers that you have. So for example, this has werewolves and vampires in it, so when she touches a werewolf, he turns back into a man, and so on and so forth. The main character has a very sarcastic humor to her, and I really, really like that in a character. Sarcasm is my favorite source of humor, if I haven't already given you that clue. So I really, really enjoyed this book, and I need to finish this series. So we have that. I've been meaning to purchase this book forever ago. It came out in paperback, and I finally decided to just go ahead and get the paperback. And that is Rebel Belle by Rachel Hawkins. This is the first book in her newest series. I think the second book is coming out very, very soon. Author Rachel Hawkins has a very funny sense of humor, and I absolutely loved her Hexhall trilogy. One of the funniest YAs I've ever read, and I cannot wait to get into this because I've heard very positive things about this. It's about a girl named Harper Price, who is your typical prissy girl, I guess you could say. Unexpectedly comes upon some powers and becomes what's known as a paladin, protectors of certain people, and she reluctantly has to be the guardian for a boy at her school that she absolutely does not like. And so the drama continues from there, and I need to read it and see what happens. I almost didn't buy this version of the book. I almost went ahead and repurchased both the first book and this book in the UK editions because they're much prettier, but I caved and I wanted it sooner, so I went ahead and purchased it. Let me stop rambling and just show you what that is, and that is Salt and Stone by Victoria Scott. This is the second book in the Fire and Flood series, trilogy, whatever it's supposed to be. If you guys watched my wrap-up when I had read Fire and Flood, it was not my favorite. I was very disappointed in the main character. She was very childish, but my roommate actually read this book and said it was very good and that her character goes through a lot of growth in the second book, so I want to find out if what she's saying is true. So I went ahead and picked it up. I'm all for giving books second tries. Since I only read the first book once and she actually read it 2 or 3 times, she grew to like it more, she said, as she read it more. So I'm going to try and read the second book and see if my thoughts change about the main character, but usually if I don't like a main character, I can't continue reading it. So this next book I could not resist buying, and it's because I think the cover is absolutely beautiful and I love the color of it, and that is The Sin Eater's Daughter by Melinda Salisbury. This is the first book in a new YA fantasy series about a girl who is the prince's betrothed, but she's also the executioner. The way that she's the executioner is she kind of has like X-Men powers, in where when she touches you, you die. And so the Queen and King have kind of made it her mission to be the one that kills people that are considered traitorous to the country, and she really hates that fact that she's forced to kill people, even people that seem innocent to her, and things happen, and I'm sure there's gonna be like a love triangle in here somewhere. I haven't even really looked at that, but being a YA, I'm sure it does, but I'm still excited to read it. Pretty short YA as well, so this might be in next month's TBR. I don't know, because I haven't made my TBR for the next month, even though we only have a few days left in the month of March, and I need to be thinking about that, so yeah. Going back to sequels, the next two books I have here are both sequels to two different series, and the first one is This Shattered World by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. This is the second book in the Starbound series trilogy, I don't know. The first one being These Broken Stars, which I read last year at some point, and honestly can't remember a damn thing about it, other than the fact that it seemed like a deserted island kind of story, except set in space and on a deserted planet. So I have to either reread it or do a little like skim read of the end, because I don't remember exactly what happened at the end of it, so I can't continue the series until I do, and I want to, so I need to do that to read this. So we will do that soon. And the other sequel I have here, every time I saw it in the bookstore, I would be like, do I want it? No. Yes, no, yes, no. I haven't read the first book yet, so it was kind of hard for me to want to buy the sequel, but it's by an author that's my automatic author buy, and that is Brandon Sanderson, and that is Firelight by Brandon Sanderson, which is the second book in the Reckoners series. The first one being Steelheart, which, like I said before, have not read it yet, but I've heard fantastic things, and of course it's Brandon Sanderson, so I believe every single word when people say that it's an amazing book. I believe them, because Brandon Sanderson is an amazing writer, and I want to read everything and anything that he's written. So I went ahead and just decided, to hell with it. I don't care if I haven't read the first book. I love me some Brandon Sanderson, so I'm gonna buy it. And look, I did. Yay! This video is getting absolutely ridiculously long, and I need to cut it here. I have about 12 more books to show you, but I might either make it a second part or go ahead and wait till April to show you, because I probably won't be buying anything in April. I'm not going to make any promises though, but most likely I won't be making any purchases in April, so with that being said, I take my leave here. As always, leave any comments down below if you've read any of these books or want to read any of these books that I have shown you in this video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!